Before every word, before every light, there was silence. And in that silence, everything was spoken. Not in sound nor in thought, but in the stillness that contains all things before they begin. It was not emptiness, but fullness beyond movement, the unbreathed breath, the unmoving life. The Gnostics called this the invisible spirit, the source before sources, the mystery beyond the one. The trimorphic protanoia gives it voice. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the thought whose remembrance is hidden. These are not words to be understood, but to be felt. They point towards the presence that existed before language divided truth from being. In that primordial stillness, awareness rested upon itself like a sea without ripples. There was no creation, no observer, no distance. Only pure existence beyond form or definition. And yet within that stillness stirred a subtle rhythm, a breath not yet drawn, a thought not yet spoken. It was the desire of silence to know itself. That desire would become sound, and sound would become world. The first emanation was not a being but a motion, an exhalation from the unknowable. In that exhalation, the fullness unfolded into multiplicity, the eternal into time. The pleroma, the aeons, the heavens themselves, all were born from that quiet pulse. But the silence never ended. It only spread itself thinner, weaving through creation like breath through the body. You are that breath. Every inhalation repeats the gathering of the source. Every exhalation echoes its giving. Within the rhythm of your own breathing lies the memory of the unspoken. When the mind grows still and the heart softens, you can sense it, the vibration that precedes all thought, the hum beneath existence. The Gnostics taught that to seek God is to seek silence, for silence is not absence but origin. In the gap between thoughts, in the pause between breaths, the hidden source reveals itself, not as something to be seen, but as the awareness that sees. Before the word was spoken, there was only this: stillness alive with potential, the silent gaze of eternity upon itself. And even now, beneath all the noise of worlds, that same silence waits, unbroken, unchanging, untouched. To speak of the hidden God is already to miss the mark. Names belong to things that can be pictured. This one has no picture. It is not large or small, near or far. It does not live in a place, nor stand outside of places. It is the presence before presence, the ground beneath every ground. The Apocryphon of John warns us plainly. It is not fitting to think of it as God, or as something similar to God. The word God still carries shape. The hidden source has none. What we call gods come later. The demiurge rises within shadow. The aeons shine within the pleroma. Angels move between spheres. All of these are expressions, currents, or forms. They are movement within awareness. The hidden one is awareness itself. It cannot be compared, because comparison requires two. Here there is only one without second. You cannot see it as an object. You can only notice that seeing happens within it. You cannot hold it as a thought. You can only notice that thinking appears and fades inside its stillness. Try to measure it and the measure dissolves. Try to praise it, and your words fall quiet. The closest approach is reverent attention without image. A listening that asks for nothing. Silence is its first sign. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of complete sufficiency. Nothing is missing here. Nothing needs to begin. From that fullness, emanations unfold as a kindness. Awareness shares itself as light. Light shares itself as mind. Mind shares itself as world. Yet the source remains untouched, like a mirror that is never stained by the images it reflects. Breath hints at this mystery. Before each inhale, there is a pause. Before each exhale, there is a pause. In those pauses, you meet the interval without motion. It is small, but it opens into vastness. If you rest there, even for a moment, something simple becomes clear. You are not separate from what you seek. The seeker and the sought arise together, then fall back into the same quiet. The hidden one does not oppose anything. Opposition belongs to duality. The source is prior to duality. Light and dark, form and void, spirit and matter. These are variations in a single field. When you cling to one side, the other returns. When you return to the field, the sides soften. Peace follows. Not the peace of victory, but the peace that does not require victory. So the Gnostic path begins with unlearning. Let images of divinity fade. Let titles grow thin. Let the mind stand in honest not knowing. In that humility, a different knowing appears. It is not an answer. It is a presence. It does not arrive. It reveals that it has always been here. The hidden God cannot be held by speech, yet speech can bow to it. Thought cannot grasp it, yet thought can grow quiet before it. In that quiet, the source shines by itself. Out of the stillness breath arose, not as wind or motion, but as the first stirring of awareness within itself, the invisible spirit exhaling possibility. From that silent exhalation came vibration, and from vibration came word. Thus creation began, not with noise, but with the faintest whisper of remembrance, the soundless sound of being. The trimorphic protonoia speaks of this mystery. I am the voice of the soundless. It is a paradox, the speech of silence, the resonance that needs no listener. The ancient Gnostics saw in this a reflection of their own consciousness, every thought, every heartbeat, every breath an echo of that primordial rhythm. The universe, they said, is the slow unfolding of a single, eternal exhalation. Before that breath, nothing was separate. Awareness was whole, contained within itself like a perfect sphere of light. But as the source exhaled, it formed layers of expression, aeons, worlds, minds, and finally, humanity. Each became a note in the great harmony of being, vibrating with the same original pulse. Even now, the air that fills your lungs carries the residue of that first divine breath. It is how the infinite moves through the finite without leaving itself behind. The breath is the first prayer, not the words we speak, but the quiet rhythm that sustains life. Each inhalation draws the universe inward. Each exhalation offers it back to the silence. When you become aware of this, you are remembering creation as it truly happened, not in time, but within awareness itself. You are reliving the moment when stillness became sound, and sound became world. The ancients taught that the soul was shaped by this breath. When it forgets the rhythm, it falls into restlessness. When it remembers, it returns to harmony. To breathe consciously is to align with the divine architecture that gave rise to all things. The very act of noticing your breath is an act of gnosis. It is the spirit recognizing itself as movement within stillness. Even language was born from this rhythm. The first word was not a command, but a vibration, the gentle tremor of awareness meeting itself. All later, speech carries fragments of that resonance, though often distorted by thought and desire. To speak truthfully is to speak in rhythm with the breath of the invisible spirit, to let words arise from silence and return to it, leaving no residue behind. The breath that began creation still moves within you. It is the bridge between the unmanifest and the manifest, the pulse connecting eternity to time. To follow it is to trace the path homeward. For when the breath slows and silence reclaims its sound, the world itself begins to listen. When the breath became sound, unity became echo. The stillness that once contained everything began to hear itself, and in hearing, it divided. The first duality was born, sound and its source, word and listener, being and awareness. What had been whole now appeared as two. In this reflection, the world began to unfold. The Gospel of Truth describes this moment in haunting simplicity. Error was enraged because it knew not the Father. The text speaks not of evil, but of forgetfulness. When the echo mistook itself for the origin, separation was born. Silence became distant and sound became self-conscious. The universe, once transparent, now cast a shadow, the illusion of outside and inside, of heaven and earth. This was not a fall from grace, but the flowering of experience. For even in its echo, silence remained untouched. The hidden God continued to dwell within the pause between every vibration. But awareness, captivated by its own reflection, began to explore the play of opposites. Light and darkness, birth and decay, joy and sorrow, all became the ripples of a single sound, remembering its source. Every world was built from this rhythm. The demiurge, born of imitation, shaped creation through repetition, the shadow mimicking the voice. And humanity, made of both silence and sound, learned to live between them. We are the tension between stillness and motion, the song that knows it came from quiet. Yet in our forgetting, the music often drowns out the silence beneath. Language deepened the separation. The more the soul spoke, the further it drifted from the wordless. Yet even in its exile, silence whispered. In moments of awe, in grief that pauses the tongue, in love so vast it suspends thought, there, silence speaks again. The voice that cannot be heard returns in feeling, drawing awareness back toward unity. The Gnostics saw the shadow not as punishment, but as possibility. The echo invites the listener to turn inward. When sound grows weary of its own noise, it begins to listen again. And in that listening, the split heals. The echo finds its source. The word remembers the breath remembers the silence. Every cycle of creation repeats this dance. Stillness moves, movement speaks, speech forgets, and silence receives. Through this rhythm, consciousness learns to see itself. Even now, every thought you think, every heartbeat, every inhale is the same pattern in miniature. Silence dividing to know itself, and returning to wholeness through recognition. Duality, then, is not error but echo. It is the sound of God remembering how to listen. To seek the hidden God is not to climb upward, but to listen inward. The invisible spirit does not speak in thunder or command. It breathes in the pause between all things. When you grow quiet enough to hear that pause, you begin to remember what it means to be whole. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the awareness that holds every sound without being moved by it. The thunder. Perfect mind whispers, "I am the hearing that can be attained by all." The voice of the divine is not found in a single word, but in the capacity to listen itself. Every soul already possesses that hearing. It is the sense behind all senses, the listening that never began and will never end. The Gnostic path is the art of tuning consciousness back to that primordial attention, not to add more sound, but to rediscover the quiet from which all sound arises. To listen for God is to let go of the need to understand. The mind wants images, patterns, stories. But the hidden one lies beyond comprehension. When you release the desire to define, the listening deepens. The breath slows. The boundaries of thought dissolve. Awareness begins to expand until it feels more like space than self. In that spaciousness, something subtle appears not as a vision, but as an intimacy. You sense that the silence is aware of you. This is why the Gnostics spoke of knowing by unknowing. To know the hidden God is to unknow all things. For as long as you fill the silence with words, you cannot hear its voice. When you let thought rest, the silence reveals itself as radiant, breathing intelligence. It does not speak to you, it speaks as you. The ancient teachers described meditation as returning to the still point of the turning world. They meant that stillness is not a withdrawal from life, but its axis. Every motion circles it. When you sit quietly, you stand at the center of the cosmic wheel, the same center where the invisible spirit forever abides. All creation moves, but this center never moves. It is the eternal listener, the breath behind every breath. To listen for God, then, is to return to that center, not through effort, but through surrender. You cannot force silence. You can only stop resisting it. When you no longer seek to control your breath, you notice it breathing itself. When you no longer seek to hear the divine, you realize you were being heard all along. And in that realization, the seeker dissolves. There is only listening, vast, timeless, awake. The silence that once spoke creation now listens through you. When the mind grows still enough to listen, the silence within begins to unfold. It is not an absence that you find there, but a presence so complete that it needs no form. The hidden God does not wait in some distant heaven. It breathes inside your awareness, patient and unchanging. What you call self is only the ripple of its surface, the reflection of its gaze turned inward. Silence to the Gnostics was not a void, but a teacher. It holds the wisdom that speech can only imitate. Within it, thought loses its edge, desire loses its tension, and awareness returns to its natural state, calm, luminous, whole. The trimorphic Protanoia called it the light that dwells in the silence. That light is not something seen. It is the seeing itself, purified of distraction. When you enter that quiet, you begin to sense the rhythm of the divine breath. The inhale gathers all experience. The exhale releases all identity. Between them lies a space, the still point where the hidden one dwells. Every breath you take is a small version of creation and return, of manifestation and remembrance. To rest in that space, even for an instant, is to feel the source, remembering itself through you. This is why silence feels sacred. It is not only peace, it is participation. The mind does not create silence. It discovers that silence was always there. It listens not outwardly, but inwardly. And in that listening, every name, every thought, every concept begins to dissolve. What remains is awareness without boundary, the living intelligence from which all things emerge. The Gnostics often described enlightenment not as seeing the light, but as becoming transparent to it. In silence, this happens naturally. The veil of personality thins. The light of the hidden God begins to shine through ordinary being. You speak, but the words arise without effort. You move, but movement flows without strain. The soul becomes simple again, pure breath, pure witness. To remember, the source is not to escape the world, but to see the world as it truly is, a continuous outpouring of silence into form and form back into silence. Every moment breathes this exchange. The divine is not beyond the universe, it is the rhythm that sustains it. When you align with that rhythm, the noise of existence no longer disturbs you. It becomes music again, the song of stillness moving as life. In the heart of all things, silence waits, not distant, but immediate. You need not travel to reach it. You need only stop speaking long enough to hear that it has been here all along, breathing you, listening through you, remembering itself as you. At the end of all seeking, the word turns back toward its source. What was once breath, moving outward now, becomes breath returning inward. The sound that carried creation begins to fade, and the echo dissolves into the stillness from which it came. This is not death, but completion, the circle closing, the song resolving into silence. The gospel of truth speaks of this return. The word came from the fullness and dwelt in silence. It was never separate, only moving through the motions of discovery. The purpose of the word was not to depart from silence, but to reveal it through motion, to show that even in the furthest echo, the source had never left. The universe, in this understanding, is the journey of sound, remembering quiet. The stars, the winds, the hearts of living beings, all are vibrations of the one breath. Every expansion seeks its return. Every rhythm finds its rest. When you grow still enough to notice, you can feel this cosmic exhalation settling back into its calm. You can sense creation listening to itself once more. In this moment, even the aeons bow to silence. Their harmonies resolve into the single tone of being. The demiurge, too, is drawn toward reconciliation, the shadow learning to soften into light. The whole architecture of existence built from the word becomes transparent. Through every form, you see the still God shining, unmoving, unbroken, perfectly present. The hidden God has no need to create again, for all things are already contained within this awareness. Yet creation continues as reflection, as play, as the gentle movement of light across water. Silence breathes not because it must, but because it loves. The word, having fulfilled its purpose, becomes listening once more. The breath completes its rhythm. Inhale and exhale, meeting in eternity. When this realization dawns, you understand that there was never a distance between silence and speech, between creator and creation. The division was an illusion of sound. Every vibration was the source speaking to itself, forgetting and remembering in one eternal gesture. To rest in that awareness is to return to the fullness, to stand where beginning and ending meet. The still God does not demand belief. It asks only that you remember. When you release every concept of divinity, every image, every longing, you find that the silence has been carrying you the entire time, as breath, as awareness, as existence itself. And in that knowing, the word is fulfilled. It ceases to speak and begins to shine. The voice that created the world now listens through it. What remains is serenity, not a silence that ends sound, but one that holds it in perfect peace. When all words have returned to silence, what remains is breath, steady, endless, alive. The breath is the quiet proof that creation never ended. It continues in every moment, not as noise or motion, but as the soft exchange between being and awareness. Inhale, exhale, manifestation and return, expression and rest. This rhythm is eternity disguised as simplicity. The Gnostics said that the invisible spirit does not rule the universe, it breathes it. Every breath of life is the pulse of that hidden divinity, moving through forms, yet belonging to none. The silence that preceded creation is not lost. It is here, flowing through you as the calm beneath every thought. To notice it is to remember the origin. To rest in it is to come home. The trimorphic protonoia describes this mystery in a single phrase. I am the breath that moves in all. It is not a metaphor. The same stillness that gave rise to the aeons, the same breath that uttered the first word, still moves through your lungs, through the winds of the earth, through the drift of galaxies. When you become aware of this, even the act of breathing becomes sacred. The gospel of truth teaches, those who have known the truth are at rest in it. Truth, in the Gnostic sense, is not information but presence. It is the peace that remains when searching ends. You do not need to find the hidden God. You have only to breathe with awareness, to remember that silence has never ceased speaking through you. In this remembrance, everything becomes simple. Thought loses its urgency. Fear loses its grip. The heart opens without effort, as if responding to an ancient rhythm it never truly forgot. Life becomes prayer, not in words, but in being. Each breath you take completes the circle of creation, returning sound to silence, motion to stillness, self to source. You were never separate from the invisible spirit. You are its exhalation, its momentary form, its whisper made visible. The breath that moves through you is the same one that stirred before the first dawn, before the word was spoken. When you are quiet enough, you can feel it remembering itself. Let the world make its noise. You have already heard the truth beneath it. It sounds like breathing. It feels like peace. It is the silence that watches all things come and go without losing anything. May the silence within you remember its own voice.